would be a lot of people think a VA loan is getting money from the government. What actually that benefit is a no money down guarantee, so that the veteran doesn't have to put up a down payment for their mortgage. The state of Texas has these 3 real estate loan programs that for most veterans would save them on the cost of buying a primary residence, fixing up a primary residence, or buying land anywhere in Texas. So if you're talking to a new client and find out that client is a veteran, and you're trying to explain the state benefits through the Veterans Land Board, you may get a waive off. Oh, I've used all my. It's unlikely that any veteran has used all of their VA entitlement, because you can have multiple VA loans up to $453,100. So just make sure that the veteran client understands that VA is the no money down guarantee from the feds. The state of Texas has below market financing on 3 different types of real estate loans. Work together. They are mutually beneficial. 90% of our home loans through our participating lenders, and Premier that you have here is one of our participating lenders. So keep thinking of that. But the 2 work together, and 90% of our home loans are VA backed. So if somebody says, what's the difference between a VA loan and a VLD loan? Well, in Texas, 90% of the time there is no difference. Okay? I'll try to simplify it for you that way. We were the first of what are now 5 states that have some sort of a mortgage assistance program for veterans. We're the only one with a land loan program. So we got 3 loan products: home loans, home improvement loans, land loans. Veteran who's got the income and the credit to qualify for each of those 3 loan products from DLD may have a home loan up to $453,100, and have a home improvement loan up to $50,000, and a land loan up to $150,000. They don't offset each other. The more you borrow, the higher your debt and income ratio. And one of the cool things is that the point the veteran pays off a VLD loan product, he or she's eligible to reapply for another round of that same product they just paid off. It's a real common scenario. Family uses the veteran's VA benefits to buy a home, and then they find out, oh my God, we got twins on the way, we need more house. And so they sell the first house, don't have to. Sell the house, that restores the VA guarantee entitlement, and it pays off the VLD note. So that same family can come through, get another VA-backed, VLD-funded mortgage loan. We can only finance property that's wholly located in the state of Texas. We cannot help a veteran who has designs on property outside of Texas. So just remember that. No out-of-state financing. There will be a quiz, so don't get that. And then when we say a veteran is eligible for our program, we are not saying that he or she is going to get a loan. They'll have to have the income and the credit history to qualify for one of our loans. Now, 2 things to be aware of. First, if you are working with a veteran client who wants to do new construction from the ground up, and the builder is not carrying the cost of construction through the completion, that veteran is going to need to find a construction lender, because you cannot pay a home builder out of our VLB bond fund. So here, when I'm talking about home loans, I'll go into detail about how to use interim construction financing together with permanent financing through one of VLB's participating lenders. The other thing that the legislature has not given VLB authority to do is any type of a refinancing. So if you have a vet client who's just interested in lowering his or her interest rate, VLB can't help, but any of our 85 participating lenders will be of that. Now, realtors don't typically get involved in our eligibility process. Benefits and services of the participating mortgage lender. But you need to communicate to your veteran clients that if they owe any money to the state of Texas, like student loans, child support, business taxes, borrower has to be current on that state obligation, or the state won't owe them any money. Manage that expectation. Now, it used to be you had to begin your military service, station your base in Texas, and live in Texas for at least a year before you could apply. But we recognize, that there are thousands of veterans moving into Texas every year. Let's not leave them out. So now any veteran who served at least 90 days of active duty does not have a dishonorable discharge and lives in the state of Texas long enough to qualify for a driver's license can technically be as short as 1 day. And it's also important to know that the unremarried surviving spouse of a veteran who was killed in the line of duty, is missing in action, or who died from service-connected causes, we're typically going to pass these VLB benefits along to the surviving unremarried spouse. Right? Thank you. Now, there is a piece of paperwork we need from your veteran client. It's called a DD-214. Sure, all the veterans here have that close to their heart, but we can get another copy if it's been misplaced in just a matter of a couple of weeks. There was a question? It's called the DD-214. It just shows the service record and the status of the discharge.
Want me to grab a clicker for you, Steve?
Okay. It's just because I'm on a Mac and I'm in Keynote with a PowerPoint.
Oh, got it. I love it.
So once we've got all the eligibility paperwork, we can generate what's called the Notice of Eligibility Letter. And that's simply the document from the VLB to the participating home loan lender. It says VLB vetted the vet, and the vet meets the requirements to apply for a home loan. It's good for a year. If you have the unfortunate experience working with a veteran co-dragger who can't take up his year, God bless you for your patience. You can get additional eligibility. Ready to talk about home loans?
Yeah.
All right.
When we start this process to get this notice of eligibility, does that kind of start when they start talking with the lender, or do we have to contact somebody?
Yeah, the lender for the home loan product, the lender is the go-to. The only role that DLB has in a home loan is we provide the funds at closing. We're the investor in that mortgage. We set the interest rate, not the lender. That's how we get to set that below market rate. All right, so through those participating home loan lenders, you can find them on our website, which is texasveterans.com. It's all over the material. And again, we can provide up to $453,100 toward the purchase of a veteran's primary residence only. Now, if you're working with a veteran client who's been blessed financially and can afford more than $453,000 mortgage, if they want to get our below market interest rate up to that limit and then borrow even more on top of that, it's going to have to be a conventional loan. But you have government-backed purchase money in second lien position. Doesn't happen often, but that is an option other than going with VA jumbo. Again, there are about 85 of our participating lenders. Go on our website, there's a loans pull-down menu, and there's a button that says find a lender. Just enter the county, and it'll give you a list of all the loan officers who've been trained to originate our home loan product. So it's got to be the primary residence of the veteran. We cannot finance vacation homes, rental properties, second homes, industrial, commercial properties. It has to be the homestead of the veteran, and the veteran needs to occupy the dwelling within 60 days of closing. We can finance the purchase of just about any type of dwelling other than what's technically known in the industry as a twister magnet. Tell us what a twister magnet is. That's right, you guys got it. Now, we do have a very small handful of participating lenders that will do DLB home loan on certain FHA compliant manufactured housing. Those are SWBC here in San Antonio, Wells Fargo Mortgage, and Guild Mortgage. Only three I'm aware of. I understand this summer when we get an intern, we're going to survey all of our lenders and see which ones will do manufactured housing loans and which ones will do construction loans. So we can do single family, if the veteran wants to buy a condo unit and use either a VA or FHA guarantee on the mortgage, well, VA and FHA both have an approved condominium development list. What they're looking for is a development that is at least 51% owner occupied. Park a veteran in a condo ghost town where most of the tenants or renters, most of the owners have. Very popular program we have is to be able to provide financing for a veteran to buy multi-family housing, duplex, triplex, or fourplex. Now, a veteran needs to live in one of those units, but he or she can rent out the other 1, 2, or 3 units. That's a pretty tidy little cash business. We want to make sure we don't set a veteran up to fail if he or she's never been a landlord or never been a landlord in this particular neighborhood. So the following requirement only applies to multifamily housing. The building itself has to be at least 5 years old on the day the veteran closes on it. Purchased because we want to see rental history, even if we can only get a proxy. Right? So yeah, 90% of our home loans through our participating lenders have a VA guarantee, about 3% go FHA, and the remainder are conventional. We can do mortgage terms in 5-year increments from 30 years down to 15 years, but unlike the traditional mortgage market, whereas if you have your loan from 30 to 15 years, you're going to save between 0.5 point and 3/4 point of interest on the borrower's rate. BLB doesn't work that way. Every Friday after the bond market closes, the gentleman who manages all of the investments for the state of Texas statewide prices our loans for the following week. And he's making sure that there's enough income being generated from the interest payments to pay the debt service on the bonds and to pay the administrative costs. But any of our 3 loan programs can be paid down or paid off early without a penalty, so a veteran's never going to be locked into a term. And remind, yes, sir. You're not interrupting.
You were mentioning that it has to be residents, that they must occupy the property within how many days?
60 days.
Thank you.
VA
Sorry.
rule. No worries. Now, this slide is to illustrate that most of our participating home loan lenders are looking for plain vanilla real estate to finance, and it's up to each individual lender what type of property they will originate a loan for. We got slammed over the last 2 years by veterans who wanted us to finance something called a barn dominium. But somebody tell me when you're shaking your head, something put a barn dominium. Well, it would barn Simple as that. That's simple as that. I only have one lender out of 85 that will do a BLB home loan on certain completed barn dominiums. That's build mortgage again. But I have an even better example of a piece of real estate that is not eligible for BLB financing. It's a condo development in Hope, Arkansas. Now, I'm looking for 2 specific reasons, and there are many more than 2 reasons why this project is not eligible for BLB funding. Oh, real? Oh, yes, sir. It's true. That is not. All right, so number 1 is twister magnets. It's twister magnets.
Yeah. Not in Texas.
And it's not in Texas. Man, you guys are so smart. 1 out of 10 classes gets that right. Every now and then you are going to run into a veteran client who, for whatever reasons, is not eligible for VA financing, and they're not eligible for VLB programs. All hope's not lost for those veterans who want to be homeowners. There are a number of institutions in the state of Texas that provide what we call first-time homebuyer benefits. There's access to mortgage funds, access to cash to help the borrower cover down payment and closing costs, and access to a federal housing incentive called a mortgage credit certificate program. I'm going to circle back on all of those. But typically, in order to qualify for these first-time homebuyer benefits, the borrower cannot have lived in a home they own for at least the last 3 years. veterans is that all these agencies have waived the 3-year requirement for veterans. So a veteran can walk into the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs, the state's Affordable Housing Corporation, or any number of local housing finance agencies, and they get mortgage funds at decent rates. It's not going to be the lowest rate available. They get cash that'll help them cover their down payments and closing costs, and access to this federal incentive called the Mortgage Credit Certificate Program. Now, let's talk about that MCC because it's a really important benefit for those first-time homebuyer veterans. Remember back in the 2008-2009 range when the economy was in a ditch? The Obama administration put in place an $8,000 tax credit for anybody who bought a house, trying to stimulate the housing market. Mortgage credit certificate is a similar incentive for people to go out and buy houses, but it's up to $2,000 a year based on how much mortgage interest they pay in a given tax year. And it's good for the life of the loan. So a veteran who's got enough mortgage interest expense in a given tax year can get up to $2,000 a year for the entire life of the loan.
It's amazing.
It's like
It gives me goosebumps.
of free money. But you have to apply for the MCC before you close on those other first-time homebuyer benefits. Each of these agencies has its own list of participating lenders, just like we do. So for a veteran who's not eligible for VA benefits, not eligible for VLB benefits, send these to any of these organizations here, and those participating lenders will take care of them. There are going to be some income limits depending on the location of the property, but again, these are very, very good programs for those who, again, don't qualify for VA or VLB. Now, if you have a situation where you have co-borrowers in order to qualify for a loan, and we're not talking married couples because it's a community property state, but unmarried couple, if they want to have a co-borrower relationship, they both have to be veterans and each on their own have to have enough VA guarantee entitlement to cover the mortgage. Because 2 veterans cannot combine their VA guarantee. Talk about new construction. There are plenty of veterans who either own land or are fixing to buy land on which they want to build their primary residence. As I said earlier, you cannot pay the home builder out of the VLB bond fund. There needs to be interim construction lender involved. Now, it's really important that your veteran client arrange the permanent financing through one of VLB's participating lenders before that veteran borrower signs up for any construction loan documents, because construction lenders like to do a transaction called a one-step close. Anybody ever work on a one-step? It's a pretty simple concept. There's a closing before the house gets started on a construction loan. The house gets built, and when the house is finished, gets its certificate of occupancy. That construction loan automatically, but in the background, refinances into permanent financing. You cannot do a refi of any type with our bond program. So it needs to be 2 closings involved in a VLB construction to perm loan. One for the construction loan and one to pay off the construction loan with permanent financing through one of VLB's participating lenders. Is that clear? Right. Now here's the bad news. Even if your veteran has all of his or her VA guarantee entitlement, it's typically not going to do them any good for new construction, because one of the typical requirements of getting a construction loan, you've got to put 10 to 20% as a down payment to secure that construction loan. Remember, the VA benefit is no money down. But if you've got to put money down, why pay VA what they call the VA funding fee, which is 0.15%. The first time a veteran uses that benefit, 3.3% every time a veteran, subsequent time a veteran uses that benefit. So, again, there's no reason to go VA and paying those fees if you have to put money down. The exception to that rule is when you have a veteran who was disabled in the line of duty. When troops get hurt in the line of duty, when they separate from the military, they are eligible to apply for compensation from the VA to reflect those service-connected disability ratings. And any veteran with a service-connected disability rating from VA, that VA funding fee is waived. Right? That's really important. All right. The other thing to be aware of is typically it takes really good credit to get a construction. Typically middle scores of 700 and better. Last thing we want to hear is from a veteran who's gone out and bought land and thinks there's this easy, low-cost way to build a house in Texas. It's just not there. So let's assume we have a veteran who meets, who's got the wherewithal to make the down payment. They got the credit history to qualify. Now, if there's a balance in a land loan associated with this bill, that's going to get rolled up into the construction bill. So when the construction loan gets paid off at the end of the process, it's also paying off the land loan, which typically has a higher interest rate than a home loan, because there is no secondary market for land loans out there. So they'll save a little bit of money there. Any questions on new construction so far? All right. The only other thing you need to know about new construction is that VLB requires those homes to be energy efficient. Simple reason. Going to save money for the veteran and his or her family. Now, used to be the only evidence of energy efficiency that VLB would accept is an Energy Star certificate. So we got lots of calls from Texas home builders who pointed out that Energy Star is a pretty expensive way to build an energy efficient house because the feds prescribe the steps the builder needs to take in order to get that rating. So we were able to negotiate with EPA that runs Energy Star, that there's an alternative to Energy Star called the Home Energy Rating System, or HERS scale. That's a little bit cheaper for builders to achieve. So now builders have a choice. They can either keep building the Energy Star or they can shoot for HERS ratings 75 points or below. Okay. Any questions on new construction? Talk about lender fees, interest rates. This is where the rubber hits the road. Typically, a veteran who is not familiar with the Veterans Land Board is just going to go to a VA mortgage lender and get a interest rate that's mostly based on their credit score. Now, each of those lenders is going to have a credit score threshold. One threshold is what's the minimum middle FICO the borrower needs to have in order to be approved for a VA or VLB loan. That's one. The other is what's the minimum middle FICO the borrower needs to have in order to get that VA lender's best rate on that day without the borrower paying points. All clear? So, and all those lenders are going to be all over the map in terms of what those figures are. So that's homework the veteran needs to do. Don't want to get them stuck with a lender who says you got to have a 700 middle score to get my best market rate. Now, in terms of fees, most VA loans have a 1% origination fee that may be rolled up into the VA loan. If the veteran is lucky enough to be working with one of VLB's participating home loan lenders, they not only can charge the origination fee, but these our lenders are allowed to charge an optional fee called a participation fee. And it's just another way for our lenders to get compensated. But the participation fee may not be financed. So either the veteran, the seller, or the lender has to cover that participation fee. And let's step back a little, because anytime you add fees to a loan, it's driving up the annual percentage rate, or APR. We don't care what the difference is between the nominal VA rate and the nominal VLB rate every week. What we care about is what's the cost of financing for the veteran. So in most cases, veterans who have outstanding credit are not going to benefit much, if at all, from our home loan program, because the market's taking care of those. But let's say we have a veteran who goes up at a VA lender, and the VA lender says, you got to have 700 middle score, or better to get my best rate, but if you pay me 2 or 3 discount points, we'll buy down that rate. Well, every time you add those points, you're jacking up the APR. So those veterans would, if they went with VLB instead of the market VA, they can't pay discount points because we're the lender and we don't allow it. So some veterans that might otherwise have to pay discount points to get a decent rate, they're better off using our program. But where we really shine is when we have a veteran with a service-connected disability rating of at least 30%. VLB is going to knock a half point off that already below market rate. I apologize that I did not check what our rate is this week. I can tell you what it was last week. It doesn't change very much. Last week it was a 405 base rate for a VLB funded mortgage. If you had excellent credit, you would expect to pay between 4.5% and 5% for a VA market loan.
Incredible.
So, with that half point discount, the disabled veteran is only paying a 355 on that same mortgage. So they're saving anywhere from a full point to 1.5 points off their interest rate. So, yeah, doesn't matter if you have more than 30%, you're not going to get more disability discount if you have more disability. Just that threshold is 30% or greater. So in every case in the last 7 years that I've seen, a veteran who qualifies for the disability discount comes out better using VLB's home loan program. All make sense? Any questions?
Makes sense.
All right. I also want to point out that the unremarried spouse of a veteran who qualified for that disability discount at the time the veteran passed away, we're going to let the surviving spouse keep that discount. Okay. Any other questions on home loans? Home improvement loans are for veterans who want to fall back in love with the house they already own. Up until 2 years ago, the maximum home improvement loan through VLB was $25,000. So we got so many calls from veterans who pointed out what everybody in this room already knows. That's the cost of contractors in Texas is going through the roof, and it's only getting worse as we rebuild after Harvey. So the biggest comments we were getting was, we can't afford to get the work done that needs getting done for $25,000. So our board of directors doubled the maximum home improvement loan to $50,000. So let me walk you through the scenario. Borrower doesn't need more than 10 grand. We'll give him or her up to 10 years to pay off the home improvement loan. We'll pay it down early. If it's more than 10 grand, we'll give them 20 years to pay it off. So those payments will be a lot more affordable. They only need up to the previous limit of $25,000. It's going to be an FHA insured loan. We're going to collect 14 months of prepaid mortgage insurance at closing and then add the monthly insurance payment to the loan coupon starting in month 15. Now, if your veteran client wants to borrow more than 25 and up to the new limit of 50,000, we're going to consider that mortgage self-insured. Do that by making sure there's enough equity in the veteran's homestead to cover any first lien mortgage balance plus the amount of funds the veteran is seeking for home improvements through the VLB. All right. Now, we're going to be almost stupid conservative in terms of how we value a veteran's home, because we're going to use the tax rolls, not the market value, to determine how much equity that veteran has in his or her homestead. And we all recognize that typically the valuation of the central appraisal district is below what the market appraisal would be.
Getting closer.
So, recognizing that, VLB will allow a veteran borrower at the veteran's expense to hire a private appraiser to get a market appraisal and thus qualify for more home improvement funds. All right, now, what's the big deal about home improvement loan through VLB? That our home improvement loan product has the same interest rate as our home loan product.
Wow.
Yeah, wow is right. Now, you could go into a credit union or a bank, and if you have excellent credit history, you would expect to pay between 5% and 8% for a home improvement loan.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking home equity lines of credit. That's a different product with an 80% loan to value cap. So again, this will save a lot of money for veterans who need to fix up their homes. Now, veteran's going to be the project manager, so he or she's got to interview and select a contractor. We do not have approved or recommended contractors, so veteran needs to do some homework. There is no down payment. It's a direct loan from the state of Texas, unlike the home loan, so there's no middleman. We're going to have a closing of the title company. We're going to send an inspector out before we fund to get before pictures. We're going to close, and then within 4 days of closing, the title company will send the loan proceeds directly to the veteran borrower. So the veteran is going to pay the draws according to the schedule that he or she negotiated. Right? Now, if the work goes sideways during the process, we will send that inspector back out to try to mediate. Of the project, that same inspector can come out and do a final inspection to make sure all the work has been done according to contract, and to make sure that if there were any subcontractors on the job, that they've been paid, so you don't have mechanic lien attached to your home. Now, there is a long list of eligible home improvement projects on the VLB website. This is not one of them, even though it has Texas plates and a pool line. This is Aggie ingenuity at its best. Any questions on home improvement?
That's funny.
Yes, ma'am. The state of Texas, it's a part of the benefit. Let's move on. Everybody needs a little piece of Texas because they don't make it anymore. Right? So, VLB's been making land loans since 1949. Our current program, we can provide financing up to $150,000 for a veteran to buy minimum of 1 acre anywhere in Texas. There are no maximums. It's whatever the veteran can negotiate. Now, that 1 acre minimum, if it's if part of the land is in a floodplain, got to have at least 1 dry acre on that parcel. If it is a landlocked parcel that doesn't access a public right-of-way, the borrower is going to typically have to negotiate a 60-foot wide easement to access the public right-of-way. VLB does not count the acreage in the access easement for the 1 acre minimum. Little fact there. Our land loan is 30-year fixed rate at 7.25%. We do not change that interest rate very often. Last February, after the presidential election, dirt loan rates went up a full point. We responded by increasing our rate by 0.5 point for the first time in 12 years. One of the greatest features of the VLB land loan program compared to using private funding is that typically we only require 5% down on land loan. A veteran could go to a private farm and ranch lender. They're going to get a much lower interest rate than ours, but they're going to have half the time to pay it off, which means the payments are going to be greater, and they're going to need 10, 20, sometimes even 30% down. A veteran who can afford those richer terms through the private lenders is going to save a bucket load of interest, and we're not trying to compete with the farm and ranch lenders. We're just trying to provide a more affordable way for veterans in Texas to buy land in Texas. So we good so far? All right. 2 things to be aware of. First, VLB used to hold title to the land until the veteran paid off the note. But we came to recognize that that's keeping the veteran from tapping the equity they have in their land. And when that could do a veteran good is when he or she is negotiating a construction loan. Because some of the construction lenders will let the borrower apply some or all of the equity in the dirt toward their down payment requirement. So now when we close on a VLB land loan, the veteran gets title at closing. Right? The other thing I've got to give you a heads up on is that in your travels as a realtor, it will not be unusual to run into another realtor or a veteran or a landowner who had a really bad experience with VLB as a Because before that time, it was not unusual to take, you ready for this? 6 months to close a VLB land. That ticked off the veterans, it ticked off the realtors, it ticked off the sellers. A guy named Paul Moore ran our agency for many years, and before he retired 4.5 years ago, he wanted to leave as his legacy that BLB could close a land loan 30 days or less. I'm happy to report that except for 2 instances where we lost staff at the same time, we've got 4 loan officers in that department, but we've been meeting or beating that except for those 2 personnel-related times. Sadly, we lost half of our loan officers 2 years ago in the same month. One of my colleagues passed away. The other one moved to California, which is worse than dying. And then we had to go recruit loan officers to fill those slots. So it got wrapped up for 40 days to close.
That's funny.
We good?
Yes.
I love this part of the plan. So to apply for a VLB land loan, the process is totally online. So if you are working with a veteran client who is either technology challenged or who does not even have an internet connection, this is where you as the realtor sit down at a computer and together with your veteran client, go on the VLB website and fill out the application. The application fee is $325. $250 of that covers the appraisal. Of course, we won't order an appraisal until we get an executed contract of sale. Every now and then, our board of directors waives that application fee as an incentive for veterans to apply. I don't have any information right now on whether that'll happen this year again. We use the Trek Farm and Ranch contract at 25-12. You've got just a few days to use the 25-11. As of May 1st, it's mandatory use of 25-12. And what else? Oh, you can use the unapproved property contract if your transaction is a better fit for that contract. Okay?
Just wondering, because I did one about a year ago on
Yeah.
the unapproved.
Yeah, but we attach the 25-12 to the application. Now, we do recommend that a veteran applying for a VLB land loan also apply for a preliminary approval activities on the land before the land was forfeited and is the new owner, since again, the owner in the middle is the state of Texas, which doesn't pay taxes. So tax burden, the ag tax burden moves to the next buyer. And that can, ag tax rollback. Everybody know what an ag tax rollback is? It's essentially, if there were benefits, agricultural tax benefits incurred by one owner, and then that owner sells that property, well, then if the next owner doesn't continue those activities, they could be, I'm not saying will, but they could be subject to an agricultural rollback, which can basically claw back up to 5 years worth of the agricultural tax benefit. So that's an important part of the, it's a huge part of the situation. Number two, are there any health or safety issues associated with the land? Real common for us to find an abandoned, uninhabitable trailer home that needs to be removed if the buyer's fence before we'll close. Better example was we were all over the Central Texas TV news last summer when a reporter from one of the Killeen TV stations found out that VLB owns a piece of forfeited land near Fort Hood that over time, we provided financing to a veteran to buy this land in Coryell County. And over time, he amassed a collection of 600,000 tires in a pile
Whoa.
of 60 feet deep.
I know.
So every time it rains on that piece of land, a trillion new mosquitoes breed.
Oh.
We had a benefit fair at the Killeen Civic Center last month, and I actually met the adjoining landowner.
Oh,
My ears
no.
are still ringing. So we're trying to sell that property to a company that can recycle rubber tires and steel belts. Because the real value in that property is the rubber tires, not the dirt.
Right.
All right. And then the third issue is, are there any mineral rights associated with the property? And that's work that the veteran can research at the courthouse. All right. All good on the type 1 veteran sale? Yeah.
If
All right.
they're doing the online purchase thing, and they're buying it online, they would still use you as their realtor to do all the contracts, the purchase and stuff?
Yeah, we've got all those contracts. We don't involve realtors in our forfeited land program. We used to argue with management that you need those realtors to help veterans with that, but that was in a time when we might have as many as 80 or 100 forfeited pieces of property at any given time. Did such a good job of workouts that we're typically only at 6 or 8 per quarter now, so they just didn't want to put the effort and resources into
Right.
Realtor marketing.
So land loans, yes,
I'm
auctions now.
I'm still a big fan. Right, so we're good on the type 1 sale? All right, so typically not every piece of forfeited land available to veterans gets a minimum bid. So the ones that are vetted by the vets and get passed up on by the vets, at the end of the type 1 sale, within a couple of days, we're going to move those unclaimed properties into a continuous inventory for the public. We call that the type 2 sale. And again, that's a continuous inventory. There are some properties on there that have been on there for years. And the cool thing is that anybody can just say, I'll give you the minimum bid for that land, and we take hands and we're done. We will even provide financing for a non-veteran to buy type 2 inventory. We just jack the interest rate by a point, but the other terms are the same. All right? Any questions on forfeited land? Yes.
On the last sentence.
All right, you had a question.
Yeah, you said, I guess after you said the land not supposed you said that, I wrote a note, it says able to give the minimum bid and then everything.
Yeah, basically, as long as they they don't have to compete with anybody. Typically in the veterans sale, the winning bid is going to be about 10% over minimum bid. You might have 1,000 veterans fighting over this one piece of land, and typically, not always, but a good rule of thumb is if you bid at least 10% over the appraised value, you're typically going to win that bid. But I've seen veterans who are just so desperate to buy a particular piece of land, they'll pay well over that. And again, we're only giving them financing on 95% of the appraised value.
Mm-hmm.
So they got to come with cash for anything over that. Make sense? Yeah. All right. Now let's move along to some other real estate related benefits for veterans in Texas. We have thousands of men and women in Texas who serve our country by being members of the Guard and Reserve. Any Guard and Reserve here today? All right. Well, again, this federal law, SCRA, recognizes that when a guardsman or a reservist gets called up to active duty, he or she is given up their civilian paycheck for a military paycheck, and that can hurt their ability to keep up with their debts. So the federal law requires that creditors to activated Guard and Reserve have to limit the interest they charge regardless of what the type of debt is. That federal maximum is 6% a year. BLB goes way beyond that. If we have a guardsman or a reservist who at the time they get activated has either a home loan or a home improvement loan through BLB, we're going to set the interest rate on that loan at 0 for the entire time of the activation plus 90 days after the troop comes home. So all that guardsman or reservist has to do to stay current on that loan is to pay the principal, the insurance, and the tax. Sound good?
Awesome.
It's even better if the guardsman or reservist outstanding land loan from BLB at the time they get called up, because we will let that troop defer both the principal and the interest payments for the duration of the activation plus 90 days after they get home.
Awesome.
And then we're going to cap the interest rate on the land loan at the federal max of 6% for the following 9 months. So again,
Wow.
these are great benefits for your Guard and Reserve clients. Now, one of the biggest benefits in Texas for veterans is a 100% property tax exemption for a veteran who has a 100% service-connected disability rating from VA, or what we call a total unemployability rating from VA. So those veterans do not have to pay a penny of property taxes on their homestead. It's a huge benefit. Now, a couple of things to be aware of. First, Texas voters approved a constitutional amendment just a few years ago, made clear that the unremarried surviving spouse of a veteran who qualified for the 100% exemption at the time the veteran passed away, they're going to let the surviving spouse keep that benefit going forward because it's the right thing to do.
Is there an amendment for a year, 2 years, it's just as long as she's not remarried?
Yeah, typically, as long as a spouse has not remarried after the death of the veteran, he or she's eligible to apply for VA and VLB benefits. If that spouse remarries after the death, they're not going to take away benefits already granted, but they would no longer be eligible to apply for additional VLB or VA benefits.
Does the transfer, say the unmarried surviving spouse decides to downsize and get a smaller house, does that benefit transfer to the new domicile?
Yeah, it does. And while that's an unusual circumstance, usually it's the other way around, and it's the surviving spouse wants to trade up. There's a limit because let's say they have $300,000 tax valuation on the house that the veteran lived in. The veteran passed away, and then the spouse moves into a place that's appraised at $400,000. Well, the taxing authority is only going to give them a tax break on the original property. They're not going to let it ratchet it up. So that's a good question that I've never been asked.
Good question, Walt.
If they downsize, they certainly keep the benefit, but I don't know whether they're gonna keep it at the, new valuation or the previous valuation. Yes, ma'am.
So it has to be a formal remarriage? I mean, what if somebody's remarried, got a common law spouse, never gone through?
I'm just not a family lawyer, I wish I could answer that.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
know.
But you have to be presenting themselves as common law.
Well, yes.
You have to
But
hold
there's
yourself out, there's a
some
period of time, and there's all
ways
of that.
they do that without parents.
All right. You take the water break. All right, so and then we've already covered the bit about the unremarried surviving spouses who get to keep that tax exemption. Now, there are property tax exemptions for veterans. Hold on. Back up. I've lost my place, excuse me for that. Yeah, okay, I'm back on track now. We're all familiar with these great programs, generous programs under the header Homes for Heroes, where typically the disabled veteran, his or her family, are given a brand new home that's been adapted to meet whatever service-connected challenges he or she has. And these are typically given by nonprofit entities. Great generous programs, but nobody thought through at the conception, how are these young families, many of them living off a very modest disability check, how are they going to pay the 6, 8, 10 grand in property taxes on that $500,000 house they were just given? And word got to us and got to the legislature, there were wounded warriors losing their homes due to non-payment of property tax. So as soon as there was an opportunity to float another constitutional amendment, the voters approved an amendment that sort of fixed the problem. And I was a lobbyist for the home builders for many years. And this is one of the most straightforward legislative solutions to a real world problem I'd ever seen. They basically said that a wounded warrior who's given a free home for heroes from a nonprofit entity is going to have a property tax exemption rate that tracks their VA disability rate. If she's a veteran with a 100% VA rating, she doesn't pay any tax. If she's got 70% rating, she has to pay 30% of the tax. Yeah. Now, there are property tax exemptions for veterans who don't get a free home for heroes and they don't have a 100% rating. This bill was originally passed, I believe, it's been 14 years by our good friend, former State Senator Leticia Van de Putte. And she can never get her colleagues to amend this law to reflect the fact that the average selling price of a house in Texas had more than doubled since Senator Van de Putte passed this law originally. So I tell my veteran buddies, look, it's not going to be a lot of money. Go ahead, apply for the benefit, and take the realtor to lunch. And if you do have the great honor and privilege of working with a wounded warrior, make sure he or she knows there are significant grant programs available through VA and other entities that may be able to provide free money for those adaptations. If the veteran client doesn't know who to talk to about the free stuff, send them to us. We run the Texas Veteran Service Center, which is the inbound call center for all veterans issues in Texas. We'll do a handoff to a VA counselor who can assess what, if anything, that group is eligible for. Good?
Awesome.
On the property tax exemption, if they haven't already applied for that and they have more than 10% disability, is now the time they should be doing that with like the tax assessment dispute?
They can do that any time in the year.
They can do that?
And it's in your appraisal district, same place you find your homestead exemptions. It's on that same application. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a real good point.
I had an open house and there was a gentleman that came through from Vietnam and he had Asian origin. He said that he lived in Houston, he's trying to move here, and none of his realtors ever told him that he could get
Tax relief.
tax relief.
Yeah, you can pull the form for them.
My dad never had any, but I
Huh. You convinced him to
Good
take
job.
advantage of it. That's great. Right. Well, it took me until my dad was in his 60s before we could convince him to apply for benefits because of his exposure to Agent Orange. He ended up dying of a diabetic shock. So, at the end of the real estate portion of the class, real quickly, this is our veterans home down in the valley. This is our cemetery in the valley. For those of you who've served, or for those of you who know somebody served, we would love to hear the story about your military service. And we have an oral history program called Voices of Veterans. My favorite installment of Voices of Veterans is by an Austin veteran named Richard Overton. Anybody know who Richard Overton is? He's the oldest surviving World War II veteran in our nation. He's going to turn 112 on May 11th.
Whoa.
His
Just give me
secrets to
goosebumps.
long life are really extraordinary. Put a little whiskey in your coffee. You smoke at least 6 cigars a day. Mr. Overton will never have to buy whiskey or cigars for the rest of his life. Now, before I pass out the Trek paperwork, I promised I'd walk you through 3 marketing tools. How am I doing on time?
Great, we're not going anywhere.
Right. So, number 1, you want to use the BLB logo on your business cards, on your website, on your flyers, just email Steve. So, if you want the logo, email me. Don't leave without my business card. Number 2, see the header on this slide? BLB, Participating Real Estate Professional. That's you guys. You just earned that designation. Now, truth be told, if you use that whole designation on your business card, there wouldn't be enough real estate left on that card to share your other designations. So typically, a veteran wants to brag about, or a realtor wants to brag about being through our training, is going to either use the logo or just the initials BLB, that alphabet soup of acronyms at the bottom of your card. So you need no further permission. Don't confuse the logo with the designation. They're different benefits. And then third, a searchable database of realtors who've been through this class. And in my experience in the last 7 years, about half of the realtors who take this course create a profile in our searchable database of veteran savvy realtors. We walk you through how to create that profile. Go on our website, texasveterans.com, and under the loans pull-down menu, you will see a button that says Find a Lender, which is where you find our participating home loan lenders, and right below that, Find a Realtor. So click on Find a Realtor. This is what the veteran would see to search for you, but you don't have a profile to be searched for. So ignore everything on that page except the last 2 words on that web page. And you can't see it on your handout, so you'll need to write notes. Go to this slide where go to this web page where the search engine is, and the very last 2 words on that slide say information here, and that's a web hyperlink, which will take you into a login page. You just enter your Trek license number, and it will bring up an online contact form to let veterans know how to get a hold of you. Takes typically about a week to get that profile activated. You can create it any time, but it could be a week or so before the public can see it. Oh yes, when you enter that profile, you'll be given another opportunity in which you can choose up to 10 counties, including the one in your main profile. So if you're in Bear County or in surrounding counties, you can add up to 10 of those where a veteran can find you. So we have as many as 100,000 veterans a month coming on our website. A lot of them are looking for realtors. So you may get some referrals from this program. Any questions? And feel free to call me or email me if you have questions about your profile or anything like that. Gotta give you a heads up. That counties thing, you want to be listed in 10 counties, you have to keep the control key on a PC or command key on a Mac pressed as you type your counties, or the word gets erased as you type.
Oh, got it.
Now, we hope you will follow
Magic
us
trick.
on Facebook. We have 50,000 followers on Facebook. But the real reason I show this slide is to show that piece of land.
Gorgeous.
That's a 5-acre parcel with a 1-acre pond and all those bluebonnets across the street from Lake Buchanan Dam, half a mile from the boat ramp. We sold this in a type 2 sale 4 years ago for $37,500.
That's crazy.
Prettiest piece of Texas I've ever bought. No. Yeah, what we think happened is that the type 1 sale was during the drought, and that pond was about as big as this table. And then, of course, the rains came and filled up the lake, filled up the pond, and somebody said, oh, that's a nice piece of land. Well, they're going to have a list that's alphabetical. And again, with so many realtors in San Antonio taking this class, there could be 1,500 to 2,000 realtors just in our San Antonio database. It even gets to the point where they're listed A to Z, and then they'll start up again, A to Z, and then they'll start up again, A to Z.
So they break it down to say by preference of language or area, where they just.
It's just basically the contact info so that the veteran can call or email you.
I know, but does the veteran have a choice in criteria?
No, you guys can search the website when we're done, and you can see exactly what's included.
Location.
When they apply for this, do they have to be a Texas resident at the time, or if they're a veteran moving to Texas from another state, can they use it?
Yeah, you have to be a bona fide resident of the state of Texas to apply for DLD benefits.
At least
So that's
one
why
day.
we say you have to live in the state at least long enough to qualify for a driver's license, which you can get in a day if you have a permanent address. Now, in the instance of a permanent change of location for an active duty service member, there's a different eligibility process, but because we got to get a letter from the commanding officer and other stuff like that. But if we have somebody who basically has left Texas, might have been in Texas at one point, but no longer is, they have to reside in Texas before they can apply. We had a situation 2 years ago where a veteran lied to his lender and said that he had a permanent address in Texas, and we found out that he had lied, and they called it the loan. Yeah.
Is there age restriction?
No, we will never penalize a veteran for his or her life experience. To paraphrase President Reagan.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been, one more question, please.
This is a really wonderful program. I used this back in the early '80s. And this is a lot better than what it was back then.
We got a lot of people who really care about veterans. Just before I close, just real clearly, the gentleman that I work indirectly for, who's head of our loan operations, Bill McLemore. Bill McLemore ran the VA in this region for many years, and before that, he was VA's lobbyist on Capitol Hill under President Bush. He's a 78-year-old Green Beret who could have retired any time, but he shows up every day. He had the same medical issue I did on the same day. So we were laughing about that. We passed each other in the halls yesterday. And then the gentleman that runs our agency is Colonel Matt Elledge. Before Matt retired summer and a half ago, he was the garrison commander or base commander for Fort Hood, which is the biggest military installation in the free world. So Got a lot of veterans who really care about veterans on our team, and I'm really grateful to be able to work with them. Any other questions before I pass out the trek paperwork? All right, everybody sign in.
Anna, he's gonna pass.
Everybody sign in.
Was it this one?
All right, well, let me get
Sign in,
this.
Steve.
Course completion roster, last name first, first name last. Make sure your trek license number is legible. I don't care about the zero. We'll start these here.
I just want to say I've been to so many trainings that are related to veteran benefits, and I've never gone through an hour that covers more important information than what Steve just covered for us. And I think I've taken this training with you 4 times now, and every time it helps me hone that information and know it better and better. So again, I want to really, really thank you for coming in and sharing this information. He's an amazing resource. If you're working with a veteran, this should be a part of your portfolio. This information should be something that you're sharing with everybody to see if they can.
Thank you so much for having me back. I'll come back anytime you want.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Thank you very much.